I'd like to call the April 1st, 2025 Committee of the Whole to order. It is now 6:33 p.m. Roll call, Ms. Henry.
Alderman Walters.
Here.
Alderman Scott.
Here.
Alderman Azier. Alderman Hayden.
Here.
Alderman Myers. Alderman Emerson.
Here.
Alderman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Van Buskirk.
Here.
Alderman Mims. Alderman Krizak.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Look for the approval of the March 4th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Emerson. Here a second. Second by Ms. Garza. Any conversation? Yes, Mr. Walters. Oh, you had you had your flashing button on. Okay, call the roll, please.
Alderman Emerson.
Yes.
Alderman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Krizak.
I said here. Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Abstain.
Alderman Van Buskirk.
Here.
Alderman Walters.
It's going to be one of those nights. I can see that now. All right. Motion
I'm not
carries.
Abstain.
I couldn't hear. Thank you.
That's okay.
Alderman Hayden.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I thought I heard you answer, Ms. Hayden. I'm sorry. Okay. Motion carries. Sorry about that, Ms. Henry.
Let me correct mine. It's yes.
Yeah, Mr.
Yes, I
Van
am
Buskirk
here.
needs to correct his because he said here instead of yes, so his answer is yes.
I said here too, so mine's yes.
I understand.
Oh, boy. Chief, why don't you step forward and save this crowd? The floor is yours, sir. So you turn on your mic.
There we go. Evening. Thanks for the time. I appreciate the gift of it. So my goal is to make this presentation brief, potent, and then over. What I want to try to do is take a glance in the rear view for a minute for perspective, kind of give our current status, and then a look down the road, and then some time for questions and a few minutes to walk around before the actual meeting starts. So those are high, lofty goals, but we'll give it a whirl. So glance in the rear view. When I got here, being in the middle of the pandemic aside, Raytown Police Department was literally in a state of crisis due to decreased staffing levels. That's the short, simple bottom line up front. The department had what I term, it had contracted or shrunk out of necessity, not of choice. And what I mean by that is, so what did that look like globally? There were no specialized units with the exception of investigations, which was working on a skeleton crew. All other personnel were assigned to patrol, and even with that, they were still woefully understaffed. So what did that look like operationally? Well, what it did is it pushed us to what we had to do, not necessarily what we wanted to do. And that meant we had to go back and focus almost entirely on the core fundamentals. Obviously, we needed to have investigations for the higher level offenses, homicide, robberies, things like that. But what we had to do was we had to exist, not by choice, in what I call a 911 survival mode. Any law enforcement agency, the backbone of it is 911. That is our first primary and always will be most important duty and responsibility is the 911 system. Particularly for priority 1 and 2 calls. Priority 1 and 2 calls mean that there is immediate danger or jeopardy, not possible, not potential, but immediate. And so with that in mind, we have to focus on two things. We have to focus on the ability to respond, and we have to focus on the preparedness to respond, which means that just because we have a short time frame where there's not a high priority call coming out, we can't get shall we say, distracted on other things or committed to other things. So you have to be in a state of readiness for those calls. At the time, 1 to 2 or less of those calls would completely deplete our manpower in patrol, including supervisors, which means they're not supervising. They're on the call. That is pretty critical. What does that mean? So that's what we had to do. So what we couldn't do is a lot of self-initiated activity that we hear a lot about. You know, the warrant arrests, the traffic stops, the things like that, because the men and women downstairs are extremely good at what they do. So when they engage in those activities, you know what? They hook and book somebody. You know, when they have somebody in our care and custody, you know what they can't do? They can't go to your house when they're kicking your back door in with a gun in their hand, because we are now in charge of the care and custody of that individual. So we had to make choices. So we didn't want to remove our ability to be able to handle those. Now, we didn't completely ignore it. You know, there always has to be balance. It was just difficult. So we had an impact squad with 1 person, which we eventually put to 2 people. Those are sequestered bodies available if they're working for an emergency, but they're sequestered bodies for proactive initiatives. Just to, you know, the importance of those, I'm big on impact squads. You know, they were involved in the successful removal of both the homeless camp under the 63rd Street Bridge and the one by REAP, neither of which has come back. They worked annually. They handled the community events that mean a lot to this city: the Easter Parade, Mayor's Christmas tree lighting, the 5K run and walk, hazardous waste drop off, traffic control, because I don't want Tony upset with me. That's just a place I don't ever want to go. They did numerous criminal investigations into drug and gun-related offense, local, state, and federal. So we have to have a couple of bodies that can work with our feds when they need us. We can't be that hole in the donut where there's nobody here to assist. They also did numerous ongoing investigations originating from citizens via the drug activity complaint reporting line. So they do a lot. They did an amazing amount with 2 bodies. I absolutely own the fact that it was crystal clear to me exactly what that optic was going to create and the banter that would follow with regard to what citizens were upset about, what they were complaining about, all of which were valid. We got a lot of complaints about things that had potential danger tied to them, the way people drive, and a number of other things. The fact that we couldn't always respond and they had to come to a station or do an online report, which is a decreased level of service, which also comes with being so strapped. But it didn't change what we needed to do. We got a lot of complaints about that, but I'll tell you, because of the dedication of the men and women downstairs, what we didn't get a lot of complaints about, pattern-wise, was the fact that when somebody called and they needed us for a priority or 1 or 2 call, we were there, despite that low staffing. And that was the most important metric at the time. So that's the history. I'm going to share 2 stats with you on our present status, but I want to clarify before I tell you what this number means. When I got here, if you all remember, I told you that we have recruitment and retention are 2 important things. But here at Raytown, the equation was flipped. We had to focus on retention and then recruitment, because we didn't want to continue down the path of hire 4, lose 2, hire 3, lose 1, hire 3, lose 4. That cyclical mess doesn't result in a forward trajectory. Well, I can tell you that for a variety of reasons, and when I thank everyone, this will be part of it. That is no longer the case. We are solely focused on recruitment. Retention is a non-issue. Retention is not only on the back burner, it's in light pencil on the back burner. In fact, we've had a couple of people leave. Won't mention any names. One came back and said, "I've been out in the world. I've experienced some other places. Whatever contract for however long you want me to sign it, if I can come back, I will do that." Now that speaks to the city and the administration and this board and the teamwork that exists in this building and in this city. But that's no longer an issue. This number is the number of law enforcement hires in 2024, 1 year. The lifting and the effort to get that number really defies description. That is an incredibly high number. The only other stat that I bring with me tonight is this number. 33%, That is the increase in law enforcement staffing over the last 24 months. Now, I do want to qualify that a little bit. It's a 33% increase from the woefully low number where we were. But that is still incredible, and it was still a path to get to our currently authorized strength. I don't have a data set, but 40 years of running this region, I can tell you that there is no one in this region close to that. In the last year, in the last 2 years, in the last 3 years, there's nobody close to that, which speaks volumes to a number of things. And I'm going to speak to how we were able to get there in a minute, but what I want to do is I want to give you a little bit of context when you look at these numbers. When we have a recruit that comes out of the academy, we tie them to an FTO who is a highly performing, trained, a lot of knowledge, experience, and expertise lives in that person. We tie them to the recruit. And guess what speed they both operate at? The recruit speed. Because they have to be tied to the hip to make sure they get home in the morning, to make sure they serve our citizens. They have to let them learn as they go. I can tell you that I can see on their faces sometimes that they want to crank up the horsepower and not sit on idle, but it is required to get the training done. So when you have recruits, like for example, we have 2 in the academy, 2 getting ready to start the academy. We have some on break-in, some just got off a break-in. I can see them wanting to run, but they have to walk at the speed of the recruit. It's just a contextual thing so that when you take numbers like 33% or 16, they just don't plug into an Excel spreadsheet and all of a sudden we have this massive amount of performance. But that is still, it is amazing. And the reason these numbers are here is because of the people in this room and the people in this basement. The Board of Aldermen, you've supported, trusted, went out on a limb. I've asked for some odd things here at times, and you've always been in my corner. My boss, God love him, the man has pulled me out of traffic more times than I can count because I tend to wander lanes every once in a while. But he's always there, whether I need a mentor, whether I need a sounding board, whatever it is. And he has the same trust, commitment, and teamwork that exists from this board to this, to our executive team, to the teamwork that we do, to the men and women that are downstairs who put their nose to the grindstone every day and got it done even when we were woefully understaffed. And my man Michael over here, finding me nickels when there really aren't any two to rub together, you know, but we all work together as a team for that. That is the reason that you see these numbers up here. There is no single point of success. There's never a single point of failure usually, but this success needs to be spread out among all the folks here and all the folks downstairs. We have miles to go before we sleep. There's no question about that. But the progress we've made is incredible, and that is a segue to a peek down the road. First thing I want to do, though, is I want to change the perspective. I led this presentation with the fact that this department, I arrived, it was contracted and shrunk out of necessity, but we are migrating to a point where we are expanding due to the opportunity that's presented by these staffing numbers that you see. Despite the fact that we can't move as quickly as we can because from the time we shake their hand to the time they stand lost in the parking lot by themselves for the first day is a year. And believe me, I made sure I was in here the day after they got off break-in to say it'll be okay. You can get in the car by yourself. It'll be fine. Because I remember it's terrifying because you got mom or dad with you, right? And now you don't. And the real world continues on its own. But expanding due to opportunity, what does that look like? I want to give you 2 perspectives. One, April 6th, next Sunday, we launched the Special Enforcement Unit. That is a formal organizational expansion. We are going to move K9, our impact squad, 2 yet unfilled but dedicated traffic positions into that unit. We are putting a sergeant over that unit who has 22 years of experience with Raytown Police Department in every aspect of patrol, investigation, and he's also intimately familiar with the hiring process, which will also be part of his duties and responsibility. He will be responsible for everything related to those specialized units. And when we can, when our manpower allows, and when they're off training and we have bodies, We will fill those traffic spots one at a time, but they will be dedicated traffic squads. And what does that look like? They will handle all the accidents. They will go back and they'll get formal training for the more serious accidents. They will handle all the traffic complaints. They will look at them. They will assess the data. They will prioritize, and they will do enforcement action. They will be in school zones. They will be wherever they need to be based on what this sergeant determines is their appropriate deployment. So that's the first thing. It's going to be a heavy lift, but the other thing that this is going to do is it is going to bleed off way too much span of work for the patrol captain. All of this has resided with him. And he has all of these new officers and all these training folks and all the folks that are coming on board. And we're going to take this and we're going to give it to a sergeant that'll be under investigation. So we've redone the organizational chart because we also have to defend our span of control. We also have to defend the fact that we don't let things slip to where we get gigged for failure to train or failure to supervise. And I'll tell you, when you press it to this point, it wakes me up at night. But this is going to be a big help. The other thing is, we're going to do this and we will still have a much more robust patrol. There will still be more bodies there. There will still be more availability. We will have bench strength so that one or two calls will not deplete us completely. And what does that allow them to do? Some of their own proactive activity, despite the fact that calls for service are their primary responsibility. So those two things, they'll be, I've heard them talking in the parking lot, right? They're spinning back up on warrant arrests, hot spots in traffic. I believe you saw some folks maybe this morning, Mayor, that might have been involved in some self-initiated stuff, and I'll leave that to you if you want to say anything about it. But what I want to say is that the trajectory is good. The trajectory has changed. I asked everyone to be patient. The reality of it is none of us really had a choice. The patience came with the equation. And now we're able to take a little bit of a breath. As I said, miles to go before we sleep. But what has happened within Raytown Police Department the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years is amazing from where we started. And I'll tell you what, the folks downstairs, they vet an incredible number of people to find those 16, but those 6, they can't wait to go to work. And that's the kind of person that we want here. And we also want the culture, which that team down there creates and what Damon creates and what you create. We want a culture where they can't wait to get to work because it's a fun place to be, even though we have a lot of work to do. So that said, that's a little bit of the past, a little bit of the present, a little look to the future. And now I am going to open it up for what I didn't explain clearly enough, something I didn't cover that you're curious about. And so I'm going to dribble, pass it to you for questions or comments or what else can I cover. It's a lot to cover when you try to do a number of years in a short period.
True. So what the chief was referring to is I texted him this morning because as I was coming through the school zone at Southwood for the first time in a long time because of efforts of Officer Ferguson and some others doing it on as much as possible, everybody was strolling through there at about 26 miles an hour. First time in years I've come through there, which I come through there quite often in the morning, and usually they're all doing 45 and 50. Even when I was traffic sergeant, we'd run radar down through there. Unless we kept on it constantly, they would roll back up again. But because of those efforts, those officers, you could tell everybody was like, ooh, there's a little enforcement going on out here, so we need to slow down and drive. And it wasn't just a few people, it was the entire bunch of about 20 cars going through there. And I went back through again and turned around and came back through just to see if it was a fluke, because they were all bunched up, and it was not just a fluke. They were, in fact, driving slowly.
Progress.
Yeah, progress. Very good. Anyway.
Thank you.
You bet. Miss Larita Hayden.
Just a couple of questions. So when we looked in the rearview mirror, you said you had one, and now you have 2 impact squad officers. How many do we currently have?
2.
We still have 2.
Yeah, because it's an exponential increase in what they can do when they're together because they have officer safety issues with one. And so as soon as we could, even though we were stretching things, we made it 2 because, you know, it was a 50-fold increase in the work that they could do because the one officer always had to get backup. The one officer always had to find someone that was available to help them. When we put that other one in the impact squad, we just basically opened the spigot and they could go off and do things on their own, whether it was deploying cameras, whether it was working with the feds. Together is 1,000 times more safer than alone. So it's 2 for now, but I wonder what we'll be able to do when we have 4 or 6.
Ms. Emerson, oops, go ahead.
Just a couple more questions, real quick questions. So I need to make a correction. During the Alderman Forum, I said we have 14 hires in 2024, so we have 16
Yeah, we
in
confirmed that.
2024. Do we have any more that are slated to be hired, or are we good right now?
We got 4 in the hopper.
But those are those considered in the 16 hires? Oh, okay, okay, good deal. That's really good.
I'll tell you where the momentum came from. Finding a secret billboard is great, putting things out there, they're all necessary, but it's when people come here and they tell 2 friends who tell 2 friends who tell 2 friends. Because that's the trusted source, right? They don't know me from Adam. Like, of course I'm gonna say, what am I gonna say? It's a crappy place to work, don't come here. They expect that from me, but when the people come here that they know and trust and say, hey, you should maybe migrate over here, or you should think of applying here, that's where we get a lot of the momentum.
And then my last question is, when you said you launched the specialty unit with traffic squads, what was the other thing?
So
2
it's
things that you did.
K-9.
K-9?
Yeah, K-9, the impact squad, traffic, and then all of the hiring back-end work will be the responsibility of that sergeant. Like, he'll have to do the background checks, he'll coordinate the interviews, the physical agility. All of that will be stripped away from the captain so we can get back to patrol functions. So he'll be assuming some duties and responsibilities in addition to the bodies. But he's got a lot of work to do because, you know, he's gonna have to spin up and clean up all the policies and procedures for these specialized units and prepare for the ones that we don't have yet. But so when we plug the traffic folks in, everything is ready to go. Their training curriculum, everything is in place. So he'll be responsible for all that. But those are the units right now.
Just want to say thank you, and the whole Raytown Police Department for all that you've done and for hanging in there with us and getting it up to par.
Well, thank you. We really can't wait to get to work every day. Everybody down there smiling.
Ms. Emerson?
Thank you. I just have a comment. I know what you inherited. I know that it was a great challenge, and you've done a magnificent job, and we all appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I always believe you kind of grow through what you go through, and I think we've all done some growing downstairs and probably in this whole building.
Ms. Mims and then Ms. Garza.
Officer, oh, excuse me, you knew I was coming. How many officers do we have total?
We have 41 sworn right now.
41?
Yeah,
Okay, so total, that is what we have.
everything
with the
top to
new-
bottom, side to side counts me.
Oh, is that counting you?
Yeah, that's sworn law enforcement.
Oh, okay, okay. And are we, well, no, that's not a question for you. I'll save that one for later. Secondly, are these all new officers, the ones that you're talking
Nope,
about?
it's a mix.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to
a
know.
mix. So the newest would be the two in the academy, the 2 getting ready to start the academy. We have 2 or 3 that are on break-in that are getting ready to stand lonely in the parking lot shortly. And so those would be the newer ones. Everyone else is a mix. We have had some tenured, experienced officers come from other departments, which is nice because it's kind of plug and play, orient them to our systems, and then cut them loose. So they have a much shorter break-in period, but they still have to get kind of up to speed on our systems. So it's a mix.
So it's a mix of them coming in from the bottom. Do we still have room for them to grow? Because that's been a problem too. Because you get them all trained and then they go elsewhere because there's nowhere for them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons where that was part of the metric for stemming the tide of the retention problem, is they have to have places to go. And when you create a special enforcement unit, when you have K-9, when you have impact squad, when you have traffic, when you have investigations, when you have different places like that, and you have a bolstered patrol that can support someone's transfer, then it becomes a vision quest. What do you want to go do? I want to write tickets. Traffic. What do you want to do? I love dogs. K-9. So when you expand that, it's not always necessarily an up. Sometimes it's an over, right? And then there's always a tipping point where people want to take a sergeant's promotional process or more than that. But a lot of times, it's this lateral movement that didn't exist. So they often were chasing other opportunities, not that they didn't necessarily like it here, but over here, they could get A, B, C, D, E, and F, and we only had A. Now we have more.
I do have two more, but I'm gonna save those for later.
Okay,
That's something that I'm not gonna put in this room.
fair enough.
And Ms. Garza.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I know anytime I've had a citizen complain or whatever, and we've reached out, you've gone and you've actually shown up and talked to, I can say Mr. Richard around the corner from me, you know, you showed up and you talked to him when he had a concern, so I appreciate that. I also know when I came on, I've only been here 2 years now, that I was coming in and we were very understaffed, and it's good to see that you have really taken that and brought in those new people. You've done what you can. You've tried to figure out, not just you, but also with the rest of our staff, how we can help recruit people here. And sometimes it's not always monetary. Sometimes it's, you know, more vacation days. It's more opportunities. And so I appreciate the work that you've done to increase the number of individuals on the police force, and that I know you'll continue to help move us forward. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And I think that as much as I can, you know, the citizens, they deserve some explanation, because why would we think that they would understand this broad perspective that we just talked about today? All they know is that when they need somebody, even if it's a lower level thing, that is the center of the universe for them. It's a thing happening in their driveway at the moment. They don't necessarily take all the rest. And so giving them some context, I've had most people say, you know, I'm still kind of upset about it, but I understand it better. And that's what we seek. So thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bill Van Buskirk, if you make it short, because we need to start our next meeting, but you are on.
Thank you. Chief, thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Looking forward to the future here for our police department and the help that'll be to our city. I tell you, I talk to a lot of citizens and have talked to a lot of citizens that have concerns that are things that probably would be best to just go directly to you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to go out, talk to people. And it amazes people. They go, you know, I do follow up on that, and they go, I couldn't believe it. Your chief actually talked to me and discussed a situation, maybe came to their house or talked to them on the phone. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Well, I believe if the organization's set up right, then you offload about 90% of the operational stuff to the people you trust, which frees up the time to be able to do the more strategic things, and that's definitely one of them.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Mims.
I just want to thank the chief for keeping me out of jail.
I got bond money, Bonnie.
No problem.
That's all I
Just
can,
want
you
to
know, best we can.
I'm there.
Chief, I want to tell you thank you. And I know that I've told you often how much appreciate all the things having come from that area. How difficult it is, especially after as badly as it was cut. How many officers we lost and all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, the politics of nobody wanting to be a cop. And not only did he hire these number of cops, but we did not lower our standards. The
No.
people that he has hired, his people have brought forward that we have made strides in making sure we secure here are the highest quality, as they always have been. So I want to thank you for keeping up on our standards, because that is so very important.
No problem. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Great
Thanks.
presentation. And
Thank you all for the gift of your time.
all right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, do I hear a motion for adjournment? Ms. Louisa Hayden has a motion, second by Ms. Mims. Let's do this by affirmation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? All right, we are adjourned from this at 7:01 PM.